Carriages.
Carriage. Oh, Carriage. Sorry. Carriage, do you want to be compensated?
Yes.
Public comments. I need approval of the open session minutes and closed session minutes of the regular meeting of January 4th. Okay. You know, a motion and a second. Any changes or alterations?
I wasn't here, so I'm going to see
You
it.
abstain? Okay. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Review, do you want to go right on the line? Okay. Review, discuss, consider wage changes to miscellaneous wage scale, contract tracer, and contact tracer coordinator.
Go back to number 5.
I am at number 5. Well, skip 5.
Oh,
No, she, go back to 5, you skipped it.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I thought I was saying. Never mind. Review, discuss, consider request from an employee to change the flexible spending account plan to allow the county to contribute health savings account dollars and the request.
Dave, to address this.
This is a situation where one employee who's not on the county's health insurance, but rather is on Medicare, has requested that they be allowed to make a contribution to their health savings account through Dodge County. Normally, you can't contribute to the health savings account unless you're part of the health insurance. We talked to the consultant who we work with. This can be done under IRS rules, limited to $500, but we would actually have to change the plan documents in order to do that. Right now, the current document does not allow it.
So it would be just the individual putting their own money into a flex account or an HSA?
It's a HSA, not flexible.
Okay. Because it says here flex spending account
Instead of.
instead of. Okay, so if the county would not have to contribute to them, solely the individual contributing to his HSA?
Do they have an option, currently, anything with your deferred comp plan, to be able to contribute to a health focus?
Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think our 457 plan has a HSA component on it.
So the IRS would be okay with it, we just have to rewrite the rules to allow that?
The plan document
Yeah.
for our HSA.
Correct.
Do they know it's only $500?
My understanding it's been communicated to that one employee. I can't verify that, though I was involved in the conversation.
I make a motion.
Not allowed.
Not allowed.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, discussion. It's their own money that they're putting in, is that correct? We have to match. You do not
No matching requirement.
So then what do you decide for the county to allow it?
Put up that whole policy.
But if so, if they're not on the county's health insurance, they're on Medicare. They want to contribute to the plan, because obviously there's an advantage that the plan is tax-free going in, gross tax-free, tax-free.
just seems to me that we're opening up a can of worms. If we do something like this, or like this would be one individual this week, and a couple weeks down the line, we got about 3 or 4 more people want to do something like that. And I just think that, I sympathize with the person that wants it, but I just don't think that we should do that.
Is there a lot of?
And apparently, if they're on Medicare already, we said, that they're past the age of 62. And not that the age, just that
I believe so.
that's the reason they're on Medicare, that they qualify for Medicare.
I'm making that assumption. I do not know the specifics about this person.
And I don't want to get into the age factor, but what the qualifications are for Medicare. That individuals can get their own HSA per se, correct?
Correct. For instance, most of our employees have their HSA contribution, I shouldn't say most, but quite a few have their HSA through local bank. And yes, this individual could go to a local bank, open up an HSA account and make personal contributions.
I can confirm that the individual is aware that there is a $500 max, and that the request was because they were ineligible to participate in the HSA due to Medicare, so that was pointed out as well. And the effect would be that we would need to change our agreement that we have, or right now, our plan with EDC, we would have to change that in order to allow us. That's my understanding.
There's a lot of paperwork involved with that.
I'm sorry, I'm reading this too, a little more in depth. For the county to contribute health savings account dollars.
My understanding is that there's no request for a county contribution or match or anything like that.
Okay,
I don't have the original email, I just have,
I'm just,
the
yeah,
response.
reading the-
And it does say here in Sarah's response to the employee that, because I wasn't involved in this either, that the HR committee would need to approve the county to make the contribution, I think they mean her contribution, to the flex spending account versus the HSA, and then direct HR and finance to work with EBC to make the change to the plan in order to allow the contribution.
Well, to be honest with you, what's written here is completely different than what's being asked. Into the HSA account, talking about spending. What we were told is that there was just employees going to want to contribute their own money into an HSA.
And they can go to the
We're
bank
saying-
and open their own HSA.
But we're
And I don't see where you have to go.
changing the flexible spending account, not the HSA, which confuses me because I thought she was asking to be able to contribute to the HSA.
That was my understanding.
But we're saying we're changing the EDC agreement to allow this, but we're talking about the HSA contribution, not the
Well, our
EDC.
HSA and both our flex spending account and HSA are through EBC, so that might help.
Okay, that might be,
But there's no discussion in this about the flex account. This is just supposed to be an HSA. And somehow or another, whatever's on the agenda is not that, one way or the other.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please.
maybe for clarification, we'll bring it back and just take a look at the plan document with EDC, and that might provide sufficient clarification to assist with the received a document. Is my further clarification?
Yes, so my question is, if you want to withdraw the motion or continue on the motion?
I'll withdraw my second, Jenny, going back for further information.
I'll withdraw.
Okay. So let's just come back to this at a future date. Now, review, discuss, consider wage changes to miscellaneous wage scale, contract tracer, and contract tracer coordinators of fees.
I believe in your packet, there was information regarding the contact tracers. I don't know if Becky wants to add anything. I know the request is to add the 68 cents that was given to other employees that are on the regular pay scale, but I'll let
Yeah.
Becky add anything.
I had come before this committee and asked for the COLA, and that was the 1.25. But now I'm making a request for the additional 68 cents. And that's why it's on the agenda.
And all of the contact tracer positions are all LTE positions and coordinator.
I was reading the other day, did Dane County get rid of their contact tracers?
Dane County, I
I
don't
know that was on there.
I don't know
Agenda.
specifically what Dane County is doing. I know that Fond du Lac County continues to have contact tracers, but we are trying to ramp that down in changes that we're making, but we still have a need for them at this particular juncture.
Because we're reevaluating how we're doing that tracing, is that correct?
Correct, we've made some changes.
Yeah.
There are also additional positions on the miscellaneous wage scale, which are also included in the packet to add the 68 cents, and those are noted on the wage scale that's provided.
So any discussion on the issue?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Dr. McGrath here, you want to?
Maybe drop to number 11 works.
Sure. Review, discuss, and consider update to the article final rule and clarification. So this is no longer the interim final rule, this is like the actual final rule?
This is the final rule in front of you for a couple of documents from the overview of the final rule. And specifically, this overview document, for those on the audience, is posted online. It's available for public viewing under the County Board's homepage. There's a tab for the American Rescue Plan Act, and also this document is part of the County Board packet, which is also available online. So the information that's being referenced is available to the public. What I provided the committee today is a couple different pages from this overview, and it starts, the handout that I provided starts with premium pay. And so there's clarification regarding premium pay, and that's part of the final rule. The final rule technically goes into effect April 1st of 2022. And then I also provided a one-page copy of the final rule as it relates to retention bonuses to employees. That's clarified in the final rule. And that's on page 28 of the single page that I provided in front of you. And then the premium pay are pages 35 through 37 of the document. And as I indicated, this has been provided in the county board packet as well. And the reason I put this out there was in advance of the February 1st discussion and the fact that the prior resolution regarding a premium pay bonus was tabled to the February county board meeting. So I didn't know if the committee wanted to have any discussion regarding the final rules and the clarification regarding those two issues.
The one thing, we discussed this before, I forget the numbers, but that 150% of the residing state or counties, and if I remember, the state was higher than the counties as far as the amount that would be given. But then anybody that's over that, do we know that we have to do that on an individual basis to justify it, or can we do it as a blanket to say?
I'm not sure of that specific question. We could seek further clarification, but previously there was guidance to have rationale for those individuals, to have that documented, and that may or may not still be required.
Yeah, I don't think this changed all that much from the intro.
No, I don't think it did either, but it does provide further measure of clarification regarding the issue, because there were some questions regarding whether there could be lump sum payments or quarterly payments, and certainly it appears by the final rule that is doable or eligible for employers to contribute in that fashion.
I guess my question is, when it says consider, what are we considering?
Not requesting any action. This is just for information in advance of the February county board discussion regarding American Rescue Plan.
Okay, members, any questions on this?
Want to digest this a little more.
That's why it's presented today, and that's why it's presented online and to all county board members through the packet. You can certainly put the issue on place the issue at your direction on your future Human Resource Committee agenda. I believe the committee scheduled the meeting on February 1st, is that?
Yeah.
Right.
So you want to come back and discuss this on the first?
Actually, I think after the county board meeting on the 1st, we should have a little better clarification on which way the board wants to take this. All
Hopefully. I think that's the intent or the goal. That's county board decision.
We can put on the agenda
No,
just
it
to
is fine.
so that if we want to bring it up, we can. It's on the
Right,
agenda.
not looking for any action, but just for further clarification.
Yes.
Is that good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Russ, want to go there?
Did that also include number 12? Or-
My request, review discuss consider funding request for the February 1st, 2020 meeting.
Can we just incorporate that in what we heard on the February 1st agenda, just for discussion and clarification?
a motion made in closed session that needed to be made in open session. So we just need to go back and do the open session motion. We do have a recommendation from corporate counsel regarding that motion. So if you would like to entertain this word, that is up to you. But the proposed motion could be approve Sheriff Schmidt's recommendation as discussed in closed session and proceed according to closed session.
So moved. I'll second it.
You have a motion and a second discussion.
I know Richie wasn't here, we might want to discuss.
Right.
Right.
So that would be the abstain. So other than that, we go through the discussion.
I didn't know we were.
Well, it's a closed session, so that was the problem.
Okay.
So I'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. That motion passes. And then you've got that, the rest of the time. Do you have any to sign on that? Or
No.
just-
We'll just do the
approval?
motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to do personnel requisitions?
Sure.
Sure.
So here are the requisitions that we have for your consideration. We have an economic support specialist position for Janelle Brown, who resigned from her position. We have human services supervisor, economic support, Heidi DeMoore, who is leaving her position. We have a human services supervisor, child adolescent services, Amy Moore, who is resigning from her position. We have a social worker, child protective services, initial assessment, Sarah Tomford, who is given her notice. We have a requisition for a deputy sheriff, Corey Horn, who has given her notice, and another deputy sheriff position for Jonathan Furman. And then we have a correctional officer, Logan Littlegeorge, who has given his notice. Correctional officer Abraham Schleter was given his notice. Correctional corporal Kendall Bowie, who was given her notice. Captain for jail, Tony Bruger, is given notice of retirement. Facility maintenance technician 2, Jim Kirshner, is given his retirement. This is for a victim witness coordinator. In the 2022 budget, the position was increased from a .9 part-time to full-time, so this requisition is to move the person up to full-time. And we have an accounting technician for Kelly Enright, who was recently promoted.
Any questions on those?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Leave of absence request.
We have one request. Apologize that it's not on your worksheet, it just came in. This is for an employee of the sheriff's office for the general leave, to extend the general leave. This one is for January 11th until February 10th. So this is to extend that leave.
Okay, and you have verification.
We do have medical documentation. I should mention that we are looking into the possibility of possibly returning to work, but that is being reviewed right now. So,
So it's an extension of general leave.
yes.
Second.
Discussion. salary, wage, and status changes.
So we have a rehire, Mike Morrell to a court security officer part-time. We have administrative support specialist, Summer Zuki, new hire. Joshua Wolf, new hire correctional officer. Mariah Kohler, new hire correctional officer. Richard Bumstead, facility maintenance technician 2, new hire. Mackenzie Savarino, psychiatric nurse, new hire, part-time, more than 20. Crystal Goddard, program assistant, clinical services, promotion from an LTE to full-time. Joshua Lauersdorf, this is a promotion from a highway maintenance tech to highway operations tech. Kelly Enright, promotion from deputy clerk of court to chief deputy clerk of courts. Jennifer Smith is a promotion, family court counselor to director of family court counseling. Marie Heidman, contact tracer, rehire. Nathan Wissell is a rehire, now a economic support specialist. We have a CLTS case manager from an LTE to full-time, Caitlin Miller. And a correctional officer to correctional officer pool, Justin Mason.
Any questions on those?
I'd like to know about the correctional officer pool. I'm not really understanding what a pool is. I thought we were short, and so why would we have a pool?
That's for part-time correctional officers.
Huh.
That's a part-time correctional and dispatchers. So we don't have to, as we change part-timers, we don't have to constantly come back. It's one group. It costs the same amount of money. It isn't an FTE position. Those are just like a court security part-time or our CSO part-time. Those are two positions that are part-time.
Thank you.
You got 1 minute, you want to go somewhere else or just wait?
Wait a minute.
We can.
For the committees, where does Dr. McGrath is at a client today, and she's making time to appear remotely at 10. We're not sure what her hard stop time is
Okay.
when she's at a client. Perhaps we could learn that right away, what a hard stop is. That was the conversation we had with Dr. McGrath approximately a week ago, unless her plans have changed, but she was making time today at a current.
To respond to questions she has received through human resources, or are we leading the charge here?
However you wish to do it. There were some questions posed to Dr. McGrath regarding some of our specific challenges and the compensation plan in general. And so we'll just would like to have a general discussion and have her present some of her thoughts. It was also discussed with Dr. McGrath the issue of a percentage base versus a fixed amount. They have her thoughts regarding that, going forward, trying to look ahead, take the long view on the compensation plan and some of the challenges we have.
If I look at number 8 and number 9, basically those are going to be in reference somewhat to what Dr. McGrath has to say.
while we are waiting for Dr. McGrath, I can provide a short update for number 18. The recruitment period for the Human Resources Director position closed on Friday, January 14th. And we have received 9 applicants for that position. Those applicants will be reviewed with the committee in closed session at the end of this meeting. And the plan is to have first round interviews conducted this Thursday on the 20th, with final interviews currently scheduled for Monday the 31st of January. With the goal of bringing forth a resolution from the committee for the appointment at the February 22nd appointment board meeting. And I have information which I'll present in closed session regarding candidates and your further direction. I do have some recommendations, but need further direction from the committee regarding the interviewees. So that's where we stand right now.
While we're waiting for Dr. McGrath, I need to go through human resource director report.
Yes. So actually, we went through all of them. We went through the requisitions of all the notifications that we received. I'll let Wendy give her report.
We had 1 full-time CNA and 1 full-time LPN who is retiring.
And I believe in your packet, there was a copy of the 2021 budget. I guess just a quick recap is that everything was within budget. And to go down then to letter C, the carryover request. I'll let Dave speak to this as well, but there is a $1,361 carryover request, and it's related to the wellness committee. We actually have this every year, so it's a rolling amount. I'll let Dave state anything. Covered it. And I believe we have a form that we fill out to do the request, but we had to bring it to the committee first. Make sure that you
Do you need us to sign this now, or we'll do it?
There's nothing to sign per se. I would just recommend that you make a motion to approve the recommendation. That way the minutes reflect that your own committee looked at it before it goes to finance.
Make a motion to forward 1,000, whatever. Yeah, that.
Okay, second. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. questions? How do you want to go here?
Can we start from a timing perspective, just so we start the discussion from a timeline, that based on statute, the wages for the constitutional officers need to be established prior to the circulation of paperwork, of collecting signatures. And based on the way the timeline falls for the county board meeting in April, I believe the signatures can start being collected as of April 15th. The April county board meeting is the 18th, so that working backwards, this would need to be presented to the county board at the latest at the March county board meeting. As you recall, four years ago, the Human Resource Committee made recommendations for these two positions, which were presented at the February county board meeting. And at that time, the county board referred the recommendation back to the Human Resource Committee, which met on March 6th of 2018. And then that resolution was brought back to the county board at the March county board meeting, where the compensation was then established for the 4-year term of office for those positions. So with that being said, there's a timeline that's required here, and in front of you is some information regarding, if you want to start with clerk of courts. There's a listing of all counties showing the 2019 through 2022 compensation, and it's color-coded based on the number of judges that are in each county. And as you can see, there's 4 counties. My correction is that have 4 judges. In addition to Dodge, it's Walworth and Washington. And I believe I'm missing one. But this is just a starting point for discussion. And also in the packet was information regarding the positions if they were on the county compensation plan. They are not on the compensation plan, but there's a reference if they were on the compensation plan where they would fall. And as an example, the clerk of courts would be in pay grade P as in Paul. And in front of you is the current compensation plan showing pay grades N through B. So it gives you just as some reference and context for this position.
Jim, do we have the population for each of these?
These counties?
Yes, because, I mean, I know that we have the number of judges, but I'd like to know what you have for population to see if they're apples and apples.
We can look up real quick what the county population is for Walworth and Washington. I believe both population is greater than Dodge County, but we can confirm how much. Yeah. I can run out and grab that green book that the DCA puts out. You have the population.
Under your recommendation here, Jim, that's base, period, no, on this one?
That's this is the way that this is taken from the current compensation plan. You're talking about the labor grade placement.
Okay.
So that's based on the current compensation plan, and this is, and I believe Dr. McGrath also indicated that where these positions would fall within the existing compensation structure.
And I know last time there was a percentage every year. I think is how that went out.
Correct, there was an adjustment.
What I'm saying here, this is one final for 4 years, this recommendation. I read this as a recommendation.
It's not really a recommendation, it's putting context into the position if they were on the Dodge County compensation plan where they would fall.
I get that. So, they have no step increases, no percentage, whatever.
Correct.
This is just where they fall now. We can vote. If we voted for this, we could say this is going to be their base salary, so to speak, or their salary for the next 4 years.
That's up to the committee, right?
Well, that's right, according to this.
It's ultimately, you could go with where this placement is, you could ignore it. It's entirely up to the committee of the county board, how they view these positions.
And that's what I'm getting at,
Yeah, I don't have no interest.
one way or the other,
It
but
was,
This was in your package?
it was in the back. It wasn't on.
Over there. Yeah, no, this one I looked at.
Oh, yeah.
I might got it, but.
Oh, yeah.
It's in the packet. And then in front of you is the labor grade N through.
The average market rate that's listed there,
That's
where
why.
is that? Since they're all different, it can't be from the
Oh, I got it.
pay plan.
I mean, since all counties are different.
That is an average of all counties.
this sheet here,
It's not from the end pay grade, because it's really different, so,
here, this sheet.
yeah. I'm trying to, where this came from, the average market rate.
I think what Jim was saying, that it's what it is based on our pay plan now. They can compare.
Except that
Just,
3 of them, the top 3 are in the same pay grade.
Joe,
Yes.
McGrath's ready.
Yes. Okay. Can you contact her? Pat McGrath?
Yes, I think I finally made it. Can you hear me?
We can. Hi, how are you doing? Good morning.
Good. I apologize for coming in late. The link wasn't working. It kept saying I was waiting to join, so I'm not sure what happened.
Well, we can help you with that. No problem either. So the question we have is, we're running into some issues as far as with our smart union with compression to the adjacent pay grade, and also on a couple other positions. And we're afraid of just adding into those few positions that we're going to upset the whole apple cart. So we're asking for a recommendation on how we deal with this.
Well, there's a couple of things with the salary schedule in and of itself. So when we created the salary schedule, we do have in-range compression because you only had so much money to place people into the range. So one of the ways in which you're going to solve some of the in-range compression is to start looking at those folks and making a decision from a monetary standpoint, saying, okay, anybody who has been here for X amount of years or more is going to get 2 steps or get further into the salary schedule so that you start opening up that salary range at the lower end for folks to come in. And that also is going to help some of that compression between ranks. The other thing is, you need to keep putting a percentage onto those salary schedules. I think this last round you did a salary percentage plus a flat amount or something, and that's going to compress those schedules and cause more of a compression issue as well. So you really need to look at it from a two-pronged perspective. What are you going to do to the people in the range? And I would say that's not just probably the police department. I'm sure you're going to have that in many of your departments where we place them in the schedule with, closest to what they were currently making, or, they didn't get anything if they were in the range piece. And now you need to take a look at and say, how are you going to spread those people out into that range? Barron County just went through that. We did a whole analysis with them They moved everybody so that if I was X amount of years, I was in this part of the range. If I was X amount of years, I was in this part of the range. And that freed up their lower end of the salary schedule to really start using it and minimize some of that compression. So that's one thing you're going to have to do. And again, the second thing is you can't change the system by adding flat dollar amounts. That just didn't help.
Okay, so in reevaluating this, should we have another analysis by you to look at this, or how we want to do? I mean, we're in unique times when things are changing fairly rapidly as far as the wages are going. There's a number of positions we're having a hard time filling. Do we need a partial evaluation of this and looking at just these specific positions to see where we need to go with this?
Well, I think, I don't know if you need to do an update of your entire schedule, although I'm a little concerned that you didn't put a lot on that salary schedule compared to what a lot of the folks around you are doing, and so your salary schedule is getting to be a little bit out of date. So I don't think you need to do a full one, but we could do a compression analysis and take a look at, years of service in the position, not years of service in the county, but years of service in the position, and where they're placed with a range to see how much it would cost in order to kind of push those folks out further within the range. So we could do that. I'm not sure you need a full compensation analysis again, at least yet.
I don't know why you're saying a certain amount of years and they move up in the range. I don't like that idea at all. I mean, just because somebody's been here 10 years and somebody's been here 6 years and doing a better job than a person that's been here 10, and you're going to give that person a higher range just because they've been here? I don't agree with that at all.
Well, it's not so much of giving them a raise because of years of service. And you may have folks that are with the range portion of your salary schedule that don't need anything. What sometimes happens is when you place people into a new schedule, you kind of squish people all together. And you need to kind of move those folks into the range so that you have that lower end of the range to use to hire folks. So it's not that just because I've been here I get so much. You're using that as a criteria. You have no, you do have a performance evaluation system that you just started. I would be very suspect of saying, okay, I'm going to move Susie because I think she's a better performer, and I'm not going to move Jose because he's not, unless you have some criteria. So by using just a criteria, by saying, okay, if you have X amount of years of service, you should be at least within this portion of the salary range, you're using a very objective piece of criteria. And, I don't have your employee placements up in front of me, but I don't think it's going to affect a lot. It's not going to affect your entire organization, but it is going to affect pockets of departments where that salary schedule really shifted and the employees got caught up in that. But no, I agree with you, just to move people because they've been here is not the sole basis. It's really to say, okay, are you in the appropriate part of the range based upon your years so that we can utilize that range appropriately.
When we look at compression, and I look at the salary schedule, that when we negotiated with the sworn officers, put the highest ones, and I forget if it was just a few cents compared to the next higher labor grade, that, and this is where they're discussing the compression part, even though the starting wage is still higher than the top of the prior labor grade, for these people to take these, more responsibility, let's say, I really don't see the compression because they still have an ability to build up to the top of the next labor grade. So just because somebody's hired at one lower labor grade, does that
Well, there's going to be
automatically
overlap
say it's
within those
compression?
ranges. So you can have a situation, regardless of what we do, you're going to have a situation where maybe a longer-term police officer is going to make more than a brand-new sergeant, but at some point in time, that sergeant will outpace the police officer. That's the way the schedule was built. The problem, I think, what you have to be careful with is that the percentage that you put on the police contract wage has to be that or higher that you put on the non-union wage, because otherwise then that compression spread is now being squished. So if you put 2 or 2.5% on the police schedule, but you only put 1% on the non-union schedule, that overlap now is going to become more compressed, and it's going to take longer for that sergeant, and I don't remember the sergeant's union or not, so just go with me here, for them to outpace that police officer. So, you know, the original schedule was built that if you kept those two schedules consistent, you might have some overlap, but that higher rank will eventually outpace the lower rank.
Thank you.
Yes, point.
Can I ask her a question?
Please.
Can you hear me, Dr. McGrath?
Yeah.
Okay. So the situation that we have is our sergeants are in the union, and they reach the top of their pay scale after 3 years, I believe, of being in position, 2.5 to 3 years of being in the position of sergeant. Because it's less than the rest. The deputies take 4.5 years to get to the top of theirs. Then when you promote to sergeant, there's maybe 4 steps, somewhere in there. It does not take long for them to get to the top of the wage scale for the sergeants. However, when we move into the wage scale for the county, it takes many, many more years, probably looking at closer to 20 or so, before you're going to reach the top of that scale. So what we've got right now is we have a lieutenant, and this is a real life example, a lieutenant who has been a lieutenant for the same amount of time as somebody who has been a sergeant, and that lieutenant is making 1 penny more than what the sergeant is. And so I think a big part of that is the difference in the time it takes to get to the top of the scale between the 2 different systems because of the union contract and how that is structured. And in addition to that, there was the lowest step of the sergeant was lopped off and added on top to create some differentiation between the detectives and the sergeants. And now that brought the sergeants even closer to the detective, to the lieutenants. So we've got quite a few things there that have come to play that it certainly need to be addressed. And I'm not sure if that was all clarified to you, but I wanted to make sure it was clear. Hopefully you were able to follow all of that.
No, it wasn't. So you're right. So by changing the sergeant's schedule the way we did, it's no longer doing exactly what we had looked at before. So you're right, it's going to cause problems because you changed one schedule without consideration of the other schedule. So that is going to be a problem.
Thank you.
You know, so we're going to need either Tanya needs to, or we're going to need to take a look at what you did in contract negotiations to those schedules, and now how is it impacting the other schedule? Because if you don't do them consistently, then you're going to have problems.
So are we looking not only at where the interface with the sworn unit is, but these other 5, 6, 7 other positions?
Correct, 2 separate issues. One, number 8 is the compression issue in the sheriff's office. Number 9 is more about difficult to recruit and hire positions.
So basically, what you're saying, Dr. McGrath, is that it would probably be a good idea to have a compression analysis?
Yeah, I would do a compression analysis, and then obviously we have to, I think you do that for the whole county, but then I would also take a look at what happened in negotiations in the sheriff's department to the other schedule, and take a look at how did that impact the compression between ranks.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Anybody else? So right now, I guess the committee is, what?
You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, Ed Summers, Clearview. We had discussed at our Health Facilities Committee meeting issues we're having with recruiting, particularly CNAs, LPNs, RNs. The salary study for Dodge County was, done back in 2019, and since then COVID has hit, and there's been a significant movement within the wages in the positions that we're having difficulty recruiting for. So I'd ask the committee to have those positions looked at. We're going to be discussing, we're scheduled to discuss it some more at health facilities on February 1st. However, I just wanted to throw that out there, since you're going to be talking with Dr. McGrath. We may have a handful of others we'd like looked at, but when you're looking at us, CNAs is a huge need for us. That's no secret. It affects so many other facets of what we're able to do. So I just ask the committee to consider that as you're giving your marching orders to Dr. McGrath. Thank you.
And if you're not increasing your salary schedule anywhere close to what your folks around you are, that is going to continue to be a problem, because you've got folks around you that added 2 or 3% to their salary schedule. You added less than 1%, so you already are starting to fall behind your counterparts. So yeah, that is definitely going to be a problem for those really hard to fill positions, especially CNAs, RNs. If you're not keeping pace with everybody around you, you're going to fall behind really quick. You just finished a salary schedule with another county in your area. Within a year, they're almost out of sync again, because they're not adding money to the schedule. So right now, adding money to that salary schedule is really, really important in order to continue to keep that competitive. Hopefully this won't last forever. But you've got one county right next to you, added 3% in January, have another percentage in line to potentially look at July. So that's going to put you behind the 8 ball.
Dr. McGrath, can you offer some insight with the thought of wage adjustments to these positions, the impact of that to the integrity of the scale, and any suggestions you might have for these difficult to fill positions, other than keeping up with the cost of living and surrounding counties?
In addition to compensation, you are seeing folks doing hiring bonuses. You're seeing, I've had one community ask me to create a specialized pay lane. So we're looking into that. I'm not sure what that means yet. I created a specialized pay lane for them in their comp schedule for some really difficult to fill, like psychiatrist, psychologist type positions. So we are looking at maybe creating a special, each year the organization can look at, these are the positions that are really hard to fill, so we're going to put you in a special pay rate. My concern is if they're no longer hard to fill, what happens to them? You go back. So I haven't figured that piece out yet, but touting of benefits, making sure your benefits are up to date, and really selling them hard is another thing. But even with all that stuff, the problem we have right now is there's just not enough people to go around. And so you're competing for a very small workforce that wants to do some of this work. So yeah, definitely keeping your salary ranges up to pace, your benefits really competitive, touting and marketing that, and then, hitting hitting with the hitting with the bonuses. I'm not sure bonuses are bringing people in, but a lot of people are adding them to their basket of tools to recruit. I wish I had the magic pill.
You know, my concern is that some of the impetus for this, the salaries increases is time sensitive in that 2 years from now, this may not be an issue. And if we jump our wages to a high level to be competitive, suddenly in 2 years, when actually everybody else will come down, we're gonna be up on top. County doesn't tend to lower wages. And that's why I think in some ways bonuses are an advantage to that, because you can add and subtract them as somewhat you needed to fill in positions.
And that's a very good point. The other thing that we're seeing, the private sector do much quicker than the public sector, but the other thing that we've heard people doing is instead of increasing the wages, decrease the employee contribution on health insurance. It's in effect giving the employee a wage increase, but it's easier to then increase that percentage back up again down the road than it is to, like you said before, our wage is too high and obviously you're not going to advocate a pay cut.
Yeah, the problem I found with that is our benefit packages aren't always looked at fully when people are employed. They, even though they should, it's an important thing. It's just somehow or another it isn't out there. Maybe that's, we don't put enough emphasis on that, or that just doesn't seem to be the new mantra though with the current employee problem. Well, I think the thought right now is to send these positions for reevaluation and then possibly the compressions analysis and reclassification of wage adjustments. And then also from a clear view, whatever positions are there that we look at, Tanya, you'll work with Ed as far as which of those you'd want to look at. Jim, any thoughts on that?
Just from a timeline perspective, to do this, what, the big picture we're looking at. Dr. McGrath can answer that.
I don't know if I heard the entire question, it's kind of garbled, but yeah, I think, if you're going to look at those specific areas and then look at a compression issue, we can also, since we are doing some studies in your area of counties around you, instead of going out and spending the time getting more market data, we can use some of that market data and say if there's any type of recommendations, maybe mid-year you need to make to your salary schedules. But yeah, I think we could definitely do a compression and a specialty, if you want to call it specialty wage analysis, and see what happens with that. Without keeping your entire schedule in context when we do that. So we don't fix one area to then turn around and throw a whole bunch of other things out of alignment. And then another department's going to be coming back to complaining it's not fair, they're being treated differently.
And basically, that was why I asked the question at the last meeting, because knowing that we don't want to skew this program, this pay program, as we did with the other one, without having some analysis done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, any type of analysis that we will do, we are always going to be looking at, even though we might be concentrating on an area, we're going to see what the impacts are for other areas, internal equity as well, just so that you don't all of a sudden get this off kilter thing and then you're spending tons of money again to redo this, because I don't want you to spend tons of money to redo this.
Thank you.
So is there an appetite to make a motion to have these positions reevaluated and also the Clearview positions?
I think with emphasis on this, but I think I heard her say she would be doing
Correct.
Yeah, because otherwise we're going to affect other departments and relationships again.
Dr. McGrath, do you have an estimated time frame of how long it would take to do the compression analysis and review the positions?
It's probably going to take a good month to do all that. I'm going to put a little hiccup in there, and I could check our schedules, so I'm not, obviously, sitting in Lake Geneva right now doing their comp plan, so I don't have my calendar in front of me. But there is going to be a small little hiccup on our timeline due to relocation. But yeah, I would say we probably could get something to you within a month, month and a half.
I'll make the motion.
Make a motion to review these positions as well as correction, Clearview and compression.
Second.
Discussion.
And does a month and a half fit any timeline that anybody sees?
We'll make do. I don't think there's much that we can do. We gotta wait.
Yeah.
I don't think there's much of a choice.
Just so everybody understands it.
It makes sense.
The other thing we've been trying to do is something with bonuses through ARPA. So,
You aren't going to get there until
Right.
February 1st.
I know, but that was the other,
Yep.
without messing with the whole schedule.
Did you want a scope of proposal first?
Does she have some?
Dr. McGrath?
What I can do is, I'm in Lake Geneva today and tomorrow, so I can put together just, not a whole proposal, but just an outline of things that we'll do and the price to that, and get that to you by the weekend, so you have it for next week.
The definition
That sounds good. Thank you.
of mutual understanding.
Okay, any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Thank you, Dr. McGrath.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I've been dismissed, if that's okay. If I've not, let me know, but if not, thank you very much, and hopefully I answered your questions. And I'll be in touch with Tanya later this week.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Back to number 10, discussion regarding the summary data for the sheriff and clerk report.
Just for some context on the current salaries for those two positions. Back in 2019, or in 2018, when this was approved, there was a 6% increase for both positions, the sheriff and clerk report. Then for the following 3 years, it was 1.5. I believe that's, I'm looking at resolution, was that changed? Looking at resolution 1777. Is that correct, Tanya, or is that modified?
I thought it was modified for the sheriff.
It may not have been 6% additional. I think that was the change. So there was a adjustment year one, and then it was consistent the other 3 years of the term.
And that's where I was getting at. We're looking at just the base all through 4 years, or the percentages again.
Yeah, because cost of living or anything else, it doesn't count into anything unless we put it into the contract, initial. Later floating to the time.
And as we work, the other thing is, following along with the clerk of courts here, I've taken, is this little one that I can't read?
That's the sheriff's
schedule.
That's sheriff. There's a much larger summary document that we can provide copies of yet today.
Okay.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Reggie?
I agree with that. So do we want to review these on our own? And then on the first, I would like to see this if possible, get into the February meeting. And the reason being is then if it gets sent back, then we have the April meeting to go to with the county board. Or March meeting.
No,
rather.
March.
March,
April's
rather.
too late.
Well, maybe April's too late. Right, so that this way to give us a month just to fall back on in case it would say send it back.
Based on this February calendar with the county board meeting being moved back a week, that would enable that agenda would need to be finalized by the 15th of February.
So we could,
We meet the 15th.
Pardon?
We meet the 15th,
Correct.
so we have 2 meetings.
2 meetings.
so we can address it on the first and the 15th.
And I'll provide this other document, this additional document with the sheriff. Is there other information you would like to have between now and February 1st? Anything that Tanya or I can provide to assist that meeting on February 1st for discussion on February 1st?
The wanted population.
Yes.
We can get that, that would be.
I think we have the green book, we have the green book anyhow.
Right.
It's in there.
Yes.
Have you looked?
I don't think there's any question Washington and Walworth population was higher than Dodge.
Right.
But I think the reason that the judgeships were highlighted because it's the number of judges that influence the work, but not necessarily the population. It is the judges in the county that are somewhat a major consideration.
No, that part I get with the,
But usually the judges are proportionate to the population, aren't they?
Case.
Yeah, whatever their criteria is for establishing judges.
Okay, so are we good with that? We're going to come back to the other reviews that we look at them.
Yep.
The first and the 15th.
Can someone just tell us specifically what was done before our next meeting to the sheriff in the first year? I'm reading a note here in a minute, but it doesn't seem to say anything different. I'll look at that for you. Yeah, just that email that we just told her.
So what you're saying is that what it says on the resolution 17/77 and it's stamped by the court, it's not exactly what happened.
It says there it was amended below. There's more, but it doesn't.
I believe it was 6% year one and then 1.5%. I believe, and that, we need
Yeah.
to verify that.
But that's what's on this.
Right, need to verify that.
Yeah.
Because then it says on February 21st. This was referred back and amended, the table below on March 6th. But I'm not sure what March 6th. Oh, wait. But this says the same thing.
This was adopted by the county board for the 20th.
This is the March 6th meeting,
Correct.
and that says the same thing, 6% and 1.5%.
Right.
So maybe that is the amended.
I believe it is because in the
Okay.
resolution itself, 1777 was adopted by the board in March on the 19th of October.
Okay, I thought you were telling me it was changed in the first year.
I believe there was a change to the original, it was either a
But
change
this is the change.
or it reaffirmed what was being recommended, but it was definitely referred back to the human resources committee by the county board in February. We can clarify that discussion.
Thank you.
So we're good with that? We'll come back to this, okay. Basically, I've just got nothing I have is closed session. See anything else?
No.